is actually going to be the death of Leonidas Gutierrez. And Leonidas actually spent, when he was killed, he actually was staying at the Pico house right here. So I just want to do just like a brief thing just to point that out before we actually get into his history. Okay, so we're just going to go over to the other side as much as we can because it's blocked off before I read about Leonidas, all right?
Hi, what was today's event about, the tour?
Today was the Black Rose Society Historical Tour, and basically what the tour is about is to go around a local community, in this place, the Plaza, and explain the history of the anarchist movement, the Magonista movement, and the radical labor movement in that basic jurisdiction.
You were talking about the anarchist movement. What year does it date back to?
Well, actually, the earliest information that I can find dated back to 1892, but it was actually an article about an explosion that took place at an office building in downtown that they attributed to anarchists because they saw a guy with a long beard and a round object around the area during that period of time. That was actually the first example. That was, like I said, around 1892. But mainly the major movements took place mainly around 1906 to around 1922 when we had the IWW here in Los Angeles, as well as the Magonistas had come from El Paso and St. Louis and settled here in Los Angeles.
So in early 1900, Los Angeles used to have a big anarchist movement?
Yes, it actually had a very vibrant movement.
How many people will come to these rallies back then?
You would have several thousand folks. From what I'm hearing, the Magonista paper, Reconnaissance, had as much as 30,000 people subscribed to the publication, and a vast majority of them were here in Los Angeles.
So if the LA anarchist movement was so big in the early 1900s, why aren't these in the high school history book or college books? Why aren't students learning about these?
Well, that's why don't we have anything about working class struggles in the history books? It's designed so that way we know the history of the rulers. We don't know the history of the people's struggles and the people's movements. The anarchist movement was part of that, and it's done so that way we don't know about our movements and our own history.
So, could you tell us briefly about the LA anarchist movement in the early 1900s? Was it like with the Asian community too, or was it with the Mexican community? Because a lot of people don't know about this. Is it like people from all different race, or is it just certain race?
Well, there was a lot of diversity within the anarchist movement here. I've been trying to do some research regarding the Asian community, and there really, as far as the anarchist movement, there's really not a lot. There are examples of a few wobbly organizers that were of Japanese descent that were seen during San Pedro docks around 1914, but the vast majority of the movement here was the Mexican community. The Mexican community, along with the Mexican Liberal Party and the IWW, the Mexican community was actually the backbone of the anarchist movement here in Los Angeles. But we also had the Italian community here that lived amongst the Mexican community just north of the Plaza, as well as the Jewish community here as well.
Did they do newsprint back then? If so, what are the name of the newspapers, anarchist newspaper they used to do?
Well, there was an anarcho-feminist paper called Pluma Roja, the Red Pen. There was Tierra y Libertad, Regeneración, Revolución. Those were the main. Those were the main publications during that period of time. Regeneración being the major one. There was a brief period of time where there was a one called Treacher Bullets that was actually in Spanish. That was around during that period.
What were this group's goals back then?
Well, the goals of the Mexican Liberal Party, or the Magonistas, was really to ignite a revolution to take place in Mexico. They were the ones who were ultimately, in my viewpoint, majorly responsible for the revolution that took place. From 1906 on, they were actually engaging in raids along the southwest between Mexico and the United States. In 1911, the IWW and the Magonistas invaded Baja Mexico, or Lower California, and helped liberate that period of time. Tijuana was actually one of those locations that was liberated by the IWW and the Magonistas.
IWW is a union organization, right?
IWW is an organization that advocates the ideas of industrial unionism versus trade unionism. Its purpose is to engage in class war, to struggle against the owners. As the preamble says, the working class and the owning class have nothing in common, and we can't, and that will always be oppressed, and as long as as long as we don't own the major means of production.
So May Day comes from the anarchist movement?
Yes, May Day came initiated from in 1886 with, in 1886 with the Haymarket Martyrs.
So how come every time when they show May Day in the news, they don't mention anything about anarchist movement?
It's a rewriting of history, and that's really what it comes down to. Even throughout the world, when you're talking about May Day, it's usually associated with communism, not anarchism, but originated actually in Chicago in 1886.
So, if somebody wants to study about this, know about this, what could they do?
Well, I mean, they can contact the Los Angeles Anarchist Black Cross. It's a project we're working on as far as trying to make sure that the LA anarchist history is coming to light. You can contact us at abcf.net/LA or by emailing us at la@abcf.net.
All right, thank you and good luck with your project.
Thank you.
The branch was also a mixed branch, having members of all ethnic backgrounds. Just a few steps away from the plaza, the IWW office was ground zero for the free speech ship battle that was taking place throughout Los Angeles. The IWW would often hold rallies at the plaza or just south of the headquarters on the corner of First and Los Angeles. Numerous IWW members were arrested for soapboxing and making anarchist utterances at these locations. Corner preachers also used the same locations, causing numerous clashes between both parties. And then this part, I guess, was described before, but it says, after the Christmas riot of 1913, the murder of Rafael Adames, the location was raided and police claimed to have discovered a cache of knives, guns, clubs, and gas pipes. During the trial of those arrested during the riot, police argued that the attack on the police was pre-planned at the IWW office. Once again, it was also here where Rafael Adames' body was taken after the riot.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to wrap around. We're going to head back to the plaza where we're going to stand in front of Pico House, and I just want to touch on the Pico House before we start moving further away from the plaza, okay? Okay, so this next location is actually right here, right where the Plaza Methodist Church is, right where the doors are. And on August 11th, 1912, the IWW was having a rally here at the plaza. At about 5 p.m., the rally began to disperse, and the police began to harass a participant in the rally named Ed Marino. They accused Marino of pickpocketing a watch at the corner of Macy and Alvera. Now, during that period of time, there was a common tactic used by the police where they would arrest mainly Mexican workers and rouse them up. And at that point, they would force them to take whatever money was out of their pockets as basically as blackmail in order to release them. So when Ed Marino was actually arrested at that time, rather than giving his hard-earned money to the cops who were actually taking that money away, he basically decided he was going to break free. So Ed Marino broke free from the police. He began to chase them throughout this neighborhood. They caught him. He broke free again. And then they caught him a third time, and he broke free from them yet again. So when he was running through this neighborhood, he ran into a cafe called Eros Cafe. That's right, like I said, it's right where those double doors are. And when he ran in there, the police began to take out their billy clubs and began to beat him. At that point, the people that were at the cafe began to protest the attack, at which point the police began to attack it even more. As the people that were part of the cafe began throwing things at the police, such as their food, the police opened fire into the crowd, shooting Leonidas Gutierrez right in the head. Okay. Gutierrez was a known member of the IWW, and as a way to justify the attack and the murder of Leonidas Gutierrez, the police began to publicize through the media about an alleged arrest that took place in El Paso, where the police claimed that he was part of a planned attack on Diaz, as well as the President of the United States at that time, who I believe was Taft. And what wasn't mentioned was the fact that during that time there were allegations of a revolutionary plot by Mexican revolutionaries to assassinate them, but actually the media at that time later on said that the plot was actually baseless and that there was no plot to actually assassinate either one of them. So while Gutierrez was certainly one of those people that was arrested in those charges, what they forgot to mention or what they chose to exclude was the fact that that plot was allegedly completely BS and was absolutely positively baseless.
So, but really what it came down to is it was their attempt to justify killing him, claiming that he was a Mexican revolutionary that more than likely ultimately deserved to be killed. So, if you read between the lines. So, the next location we're going to go to is the Italian, what can I do? Hall? What's that? Italian Hall. Thank you, the Italian Hall, Jesus Christ.